Assessing the top 5 China Belt and Road Initiative projects, a comprehensive threat analysis for U.S. interests. Introduction. The Belt and Road Initiative (BRI), launched by China in 2013, is an ambitious global development strategy aiming to enhance regional connectivity and embrace a brighter economic future through building infrastructure and broadening trade links. It has significant implications for global geopolitics, especially concerning U.S. interests. This report assesses the top 5 BRI projects and evaluates the threats they pose to U.S. strategic interests while also analyzing the responses that may be required from the United States. Key BRI projects and their implications. 1. China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC). Overview: CPEC is a flagship project of the BRI connecting Gwadar Port in Pakistan to China's Xinjiang region, encompassing an extensive network of roads, railways, and pipelines worth around $62 billion. Threat implications: CPEC not only aims to enhance economic cooperation but also serves as a strategic foothold for China in the Indian Ocean, potentially allowing enhanced military access that could challenge U.S. naval operations in the region. The economic dependency of Pakistan on China may limit U.S. influence in Islamabad and the broader South Asian region. 2. Hambantota Port, Sri Lanka. Overview: the Chinese-funded Hambantota Port project was financed by a $1.3 billion loan from China, leading to Sri Lanka leasing the port to a Chinese company for 99 years after failing to repay the debt. Threat implications: this project showcases China's strategy of debt trap diplomacy, where countries are pushed into unsustainable debt resulting in loss of sovereignty. Control over the port gives China strategic access to the Indian Ocean, a vital trade route for U.S. interests, potentially compromising freedom of navigation. 3. Kyaukphyu Port, Myanmar. Overview: the Kyaukphyu Port, part of the China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, is intended to give China direct access to the Indian Ocean, reducing its reliance on the Strait of Malacca. Threat implications: the establishment of this port could facilitate China's naval presence in the region, thereby increasing its influence in Southeast Asia and potentially challenging U.S. strategic interests in the Indo-Pacific. Moreover, it raises concerns over Myanmar's sovereignty, as the country may become increasingly dependent on Chinese investments. 4. Jakarta-Bandung High-Speed Rail, Indonesia. Overview: this rail project, funded by Chinese loans, aims to connect Jakarta and Bandung, reducing travel time significantly and promoting economic development. Threat implications: while the project promises economic benefits for Indonesia, it raises concerns about Indonesia's growing dependence on Chinese technology and investments. This could lead to increased Chinese influence over Indonesia's domestic policies, limiting U.S. strategic partnerships in the region. 5. Lapis Lazuli Route. Overview: the Lapis Lazuli Route connects Afghanistan to the Caucasus, facilitating trade between Central Asia and Europe. This route is supported by multiple countries, including Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, and Georgia, with China's involvement in infrastructure development. Threat implications: the route enhances China's economic footprint in Central Asia, potentially sidelining U.S. influence in a region critical for energy security and geopolitical stability. It also raises concerns about the security of Afghanistan in the wake of increased Chinese presence, which may undermine U.S. efforts to stabilize the region. Common themes and strategic threats. 1. Geoeconomic competition. The BRI exemplifies a shift toward geoeconomics as a key arena of competition between the U.S. and China. The initiative threatens to reshape global trade routes and economic dependencies to favor Chinese interests, which can undermine U.S. alliances, especially those involving ports and strategic infrastructure, can serve dual-use purposes, enhancing China's military capabilities and presence in critical regions. This could lead to increased tensions and conflicts with U.S. interests. U.S. response and strategic recommendations. 1. Coherent policy framework. The U.S. must develop a comprehensive strategy to counter the BRI's influence, emphasizing multilateral partnerships and economic alternatives that offer transparency, sustainability, and respect for sovereignty. 2. Investment in infrastructure. The U.S. can collaborate with allies to provide competitive infrastructure investments in developing countries, countering the appeal of BRI projects. This includes leveraging institutions like the World Bank and the IMF to support development projects that align with democratic values. 3. Promoting transparency. The U.S. should advocate for transparency in international financing and investment, exposing the risks associated with Chinese loans. This could involve supporting investigative journalism in BRI countries to raise awareness of potential negative impacts. For strengthening alliances, the U.S. should reinforce relationships with key allies in the Indo-Pacific and beyond, ensuring a united front against Chinese expansionism. This may involve joint military exercises, trade agreements, and economic partnerships that can offer viable alternatives to BRI investments. 5. Focus on technology and innovation. The U.S. should invest in technology and innovation, particularly in emerging fields such as 5G and artificial intelligence, to maintain a competitive edge over China. This involves supporting research and development initiatives that can lead to advancements beneficial to U.S. interests. Conclusion. The Belt and Road Initiative poses significant threats to U.S. interests globally, reshaping geopolitical landscapes and creating new dependencies among participating nations. By understanding the implications of key BRI projects and developing a coherent strategy, the U.S. can effectively counter China's growing influence while promoting stability and prosperity among its allies and partners. Through strategic investments, alliances, and a focus on transparency, the U.S. can reassert its role in shaping the rules of the international order in the face of rising Chinese ambitions. The content presents a thorough analysis of China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) and its implications for U.S. interests, emphasizing the multifaceted threats posed by China's strategic ambitions. Here are some counterintuitive insights drawn from the analysis. 1. Perceived need for Chinese investment. Despite the widespread criticism of the BRI as a tool of debt trap diplomacy, many developing countries view Chinese investment as their only viable option for infrastructure development. This contradicts the assumption that countries would naturally seek out more favorable terms from Western nations. Instead, the urgency of their economic needs often leads them to enter into potentially exploitative agreements with China, demonstrating a complex interplay of dependency rather than a straightforward rejection of Chinese influence. 2. Internal critique of B. The comprehensive analysis provided in the report on China's Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) is rich with insights that underscore the significance of this global strategy, particularly its implications for U.S. interests. While much of the content is informative, there are certain critical aspects that many readers might overlook, yet they hold substantial importance in understanding the broader geopolitical landscape. 1. Debt trap diplomacy and sovereignty erosion. One of the most significant yet often understated elements of the BRI is the mechanism of debt trap diplomacy. Many participating countries, particularly those with weaker economies, find themselves burdened by unsustainable debts owed to China. This situation can lead to a loss of sovereignty, as nations may be forced to concede control over critical infrastructure or resources to China in exchange for debt relief or further investments. This aspect is crucial not only for the countries involved but also for the U.S. and its allies, as it reshapes power dynamics in regions traditionally influenced by Western powers. Understanding the implications of this debt trap negotiation is vital because it illustrates how China is using economic means to exert political influence. Nations like Sri Lanka, which has already experienced the consequences of defaulting on BRI loans, exemplify the risks involved. The leasing of Hambantota Port to a Chinese firm for 99 years after Sri Lanka's financial distress is a clear instance of how economic dependency can lead to strategic vulnerabilities. This case serves as a warning to other nations about the long-term implications of engaging in BRI projects without adequate safeguards. 2. Geoeconomics as a strategic domain. The report emphasizes a shift towards geoeconomics as a primary domain of competition between the U.S. and China. This is significant because it highlights a transformation in how global power is exercised, not merely through military might but increasingly through economic influence and strategic investments. The BRI is a key tool in this geo-economic competition as it allows China to expand its influence by establishing economic dependencies, creating a network of countries that may align with its interests over those of the US and its allies. Readers might overlook the broader implications of this shift. The US must recognize that its traditional military-centric approach may not suffice in countering China's influence. Instead, a robust economic strategy that includes investment in infrastructure, trade agreements, and partnerships with other nations is necessary. This realization can reshape US foreign policy and the way it engages with countries that are susceptible to Chinese overtures. 3. Regional disparities in BRI participation. The varied responses from different regions and countries towards the BRI reveal complex geopolitical landscapes that are often oversimplified. For instance, while India staunchly opposes the BRI due to sovereignty concerns, ASEAN nations are caught in a dilemma, balancing the need for economic development against the risks of increased Chinese influence. Understanding these regional nuances is essential for formulating a targeted and effective US response. Many may underestimate the significance of regional alliances and tensions that arise from the BRI. For example, India's opposition is not merely a bilateral issue with China, it has implications for regional stability in South Asia, especially concerning Pakistan's increasing reliance on Chinese investment through initiatives like the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC). This creates a geopolitical environment where US engagement must be sensitive to these dynamics, potentially partnering with India and other nations to counterbalance Chinese influence. 4. China's domestic challenges and their impact on BRI. Another important yet often overlooked point is China's domestic challenges, including environmental degradation, income inequality, and the need for the Communist Party to maintain legitimacy. As China attempts to aggressively expand its influence through the BRI, it must simultaneously manage these domestic issues, which could impact its ability to sustain its foreign ambitions. The interaction between domestic pressures and international strategies is crucial for understanding the sustainability of the BRI. If China faces significant internal unrest due to economic mismanagement or social discontent, its capability to invest abroad may diminish. This presents an opportunity for the US and its allies to exploit potential vulnerabilities in China's foreign policy ambitions by promoting alternative development pathways that do not carry the risks associated with the BRI. 5. Long-term US strategy and multilateral approaches. The analysis highlights the need for a coherent and unified US strategy to counter the BRI. Yet many may overlook the potential of multilateral approaches. The report suggests that the US could engage in partnerships with other nations to provide quality infrastructure investments as alternatives to Chinese projects. This aspect underscores the importance of collective action and the leveraging of existing alliances to create a formidable response to the BRI. The potential for creating a counter-narrative that emphasizes transparency, sustainability, and mutual benefit in development projects is significant. By fostering an environment where countries can seek alternatives to the BRI without the coercive tactics often associated with Chinese investments, the US can regain influence in regions where it has been perceived as retreating. Conclusion. In summary, the analysis of the BRI and its implications for US interests reveals several critical areas that deserve deeper consideration. The mechanisms of debt trap diplomacy, the strategic shift towards geoeconomics, regional disparities in engagement, China's domestic challenges, and the potential for multilateral responses are all significant factors that can shape the future geopolitical landscape. A nuanced understanding of these elements will be essential for the US to effectively navigate the challenges posed by the BRI and to cultivate a stable international order that aligns with its interests and values. 1. China's strategic objectives and global dominance. The Belt and Road Initiative (BRI) serves as a pivotal tool for China to assert its influence on global trade and reshape international economic standards. This strategic endeavor is characterized by the concept of debt trap diplomacy, where China provides loans for infrastructure projects in developing nations, leading to unsustainable debt levels. Critics argue that this approach can result in these nations forfeiting control over critical infrastructure, ultimately enhancing China's geopolitical leverage and disrupting the existing liberal international order (LIO). The implications for U.S. interests are profound, as the U.S. must navigate a landscape where China's economic influence challenges its historical leadership in global governance. Discussion points: evaluate the effectiveness of China's debt trap diplomacy in achieving its strategic goals. Analyze the responses from countries that have faced debt distress due to BRI projects. Consider how the U.S. can counteract China's influence while promoting sustainable development. 2. Geoeconomic competition and the Indo-Pacific strategy. The BRI has catalyzed a shift towards geoeconomic competition, particularly in the Indo-Pacific region, where the U.S. and China vie for influence. This competition necessitates a coherent U.S. strategy that not only addresses economic concerns but also reinforces alliances with regional partners. The withdrawal from the Trans-Pacific Partnership (TPP) has been a significant misstep for the U.S., allowing China to emerge as the dominant economic force in the region through the BRI. The U.S. must now reconsider its approach to multilateral agreements and economic partnerships to effectively engage with Southeast Asian nations that may feel pressured to align with China. Discussion points: assess the impact of U.S. withdrawal from the TPP on its geopolitical standing in the Indo-Pacific. Explore potential strategies for the U.S. to strengthen alliances in the face of China's expanding influence. Discuss the role of economic partnerships in shaping the future of U.S.-China relations. 3. Regional responses and sovereignty concerns. The BRI's implementation has elicited varied responses from different countries, with some actively opposing it due to concerns over sovereignty and economic dependency. For instance, India's staunch opposition to the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor (CPEC) reflects fears of encirclement and loss of territorial integrity. ASEAN nations, on the other hand, grapple with the dual pressures of economic development and the risks associated with Chinese domination. The differing regional perspectives highlight the complexities of international relations in the context of the BRI and its implications for U.S. interests. Discussion points: analyze the varying responses of countries to the BRI and the factors influencing their positions. Examine the implications of sovereignty concerns for U.S. foreign policy in the region. Consider how the U.S. can support nations seeking to maintain autonomy while balancing economic partnerships. 4. U.S. policy responses and strategic opportunities. The U.S. has faced challenges in developing a unified response to the BRI, but recent discussions have emphasized the need for a comprehensive strategy that addresses both economic competition and geopolitical concerns. By promoting alternative development models and enhancing collaboration with international partners, the U.S. can counter China's influence and foster stability in affected regions. This includes leveraging existing multilateral institutions and emphasizing high-quality investment alternatives to the BRI's terms. Discussion points: evaluate the effectiveness of current U.S. policy responses to the BRI. Discuss the potential for multilateral cooperation among allies to challenge China's economic dominance. Explore strategies for the U.S. to enhance its global economic presence and support sustainable development initiatives. Conclusion: the BRI presents a significant challenge to U.S. interests globally, requiring a multifaceted and coordinated response that aligns economic and diplomatic efforts among allies. By analyzing China's strategic objectives, the geoeconomic competition landscape, regional responses, and potential U.S. policy initiatives, stakeholders can better understand the implications of the BRI and devise strategies to navigate this complex geopolitical environment. 1. The Marshall Plan 1948–1952, the U.S. initiative to aid Western Europe post-World War II aimed to rebuild war-torn regions, remove trade barriers, modernize industry and improve European prosperity, thereby preventing the spread of Soviet influence. Similar to China's BRI, the Marshall Plan sought to establish strong economic ties and influence in a region critical to U.S. interests. However, unlike the BRI, the Marshall Plan was based on grants rather than loans, aiming to foster long-term stability and cooperation instead of dependency. 2. The United States Open Door Policy 1899–1900. This diplomatic policy aimed to ensure equal trading rights for all nations and the preservation of China's territorial integrity during a time of intense imperialist competition. The open door policy sought to counteract the spheres of influence established by European powers in China. Similar to the BRI, it was a strategy to expand influence in a critical region, but it emphasized equal opportunity rather than financial leverage. 3. The Soviet Union's Comecon Council for Mutual Economic Assistance 1949, established to promote economic cooperation among socialist countries. Comecon aimed to integrate the economies of Eastern Bloc countries with the USSR at its center. Like the BRI, it involved significant infrastructure projects and economic assistance. But it ultimately led to economic dependency on the Soviet Union and was criticized for its inefficiency and lack of sustainable development. Future outlook, predictions for the China Belt and Road Initiative BRI and U.S. interests. The Belt and Road Initiative BRI, launched by China in 2013, has already reshaped global infrastructure investment and economic connectivity. As we look toward the future, several key trends and predictions emerge regarding the BRI and its implications for U.S. interests. 1. Expansion and diversification of BRI projects. Prediction: the BRI will continue to expand and diversify its projects beyond traditional infrastructure, incorporating digital infrastructure, green energy, and technology collaboration. Rationale: as countries increasingly recognize the importance of digital connectivity and sustainable development, China is likely to adapt its BRI projects to meet these demands. Investments in digital Silk Roads, such as telecom networks and e-commerce platforms, will become more prevalent. Additionally, with a growing global focus on climate change, projects that promote renewable energy sources such as solar and wind farms will be integrated into the BRI framework, further enhancing China's global economic influence. 2. Increased geopolitical tensions. Prediction: the BRI will exacerbate geopolitical tensions, particularly between China and the United States as well as among regional powers. Rationale: as China's influence grows through the BRI, countries that feel economically or politically beholden to China may experience strained relations with the U.S. and its allies. The U.S. will likely perceive this as a direct challenge to its strategic interests, prompting increased military presence in the Indo-Pacific and more robust diplomatic efforts with regional allies. Nations like India and Japan may also react by strengthening their own partnerships to counterbalance China's influence, leading to a more polarized geopolitical landscape. 3. Debt sustainability and pushback from participating countries. Prediction: growing discontent among participating countries regarding debt sustainability will lead to a re-evaluation of BRI projects, resulting in pushback against China's terms. Rationale: many countries involved in the BRI are beginning to experience the adverse effects of unsustainable debt levels. As public opinion shifts, local governments may seek to renegotiate terms or limit future BRI engagements. This could lead to increased scrutiny and calls for transparency in BRI agreements, potentially undermining China's leverage. Countries like Sri Lanka and Pakistan, which have already expressed concerns about the implications of BRI projects, may lead this trend. 4. U.S. strategic countermeasures and partnerships. Prediction: the U.S. will develop a more coherent strategy to counter the BRI, focusing on building partnerships and providing alternatives to participating countries. Rationale: recognizing the challenges posed by the BRI, the U.S. will likely enhance its engagement with allies and partners in Asia, Europe, and Africa. Initiatives such as the Build Back Better World B3W framework, which aims to provide high-quality infrastructure alternatives to the BRI, will gain momentum. By collaborating with like-minded nations such as Japan, Australia, and India, the U.S. can promote sustainable investment options that prioritize transparency and local benefits, countering China's narrative. 5. Technological competition and standards setting. Prediction: the race for technological supremacy will intensify, with the BRI positioning China at the forefront of setting global standards. Rationale: as China advances its technological capabilities through the BRI, it will seek to establish standards that favor its companies and values. The U.S. will need to respond by promoting its own technological standards through international coalitions. The competition will extend to emerging technologies such as 5G, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity, where the U.S. can leverage its existing technological edge but must also invest heavily in research and development to avoid falling behind. 6. Impact of global economic shifts. Prediction: the BRI will adapt to changing global economic conditions, including shifts in supply chains and the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic. Rationale: the pandemic has exposed vulnerabilities in global supply chains heavily reliant on China. Countries are increasingly looking to diversify their supply chains, which may lead to a re-evaluation of BRI projects. China will need to address these concerns by offering more favorable terms to countries seeking to relocate their manufacturing bases. The BRI may pivot towards facilitating trade routes that connect nations outside of China, fostering regional trade networks while still maintaining Chinese economic influence. Conclusion: the future of the Belt and Road Initiative presents both challenges and opportunities for U.S. interests globally. As China continues its ambitious infrastructure and economic strategy, the U.S. must adapt to this evolving landscape through strategic partnerships, innovative alternatives, and a commitment to transparency and sustainable development. The geopolitical ramifications of the BRI will require nuanced diplomacy, proactive engagement, and a recognition that the balance of global power is shifting. The next decade will be critical in determining how effectively the U.S. can navigate these changes while safeguarding its interests and promoting a liberal international order.